This is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and we're once again recording at Nutmeg with our engineer, Frank Verderosa. Our guest this week is an actor, producer, podcast host, film historian, Emmy-winning writer, and one of the sharpest and most admired stand-up comedians of his generation. You've seen him on Mad TV, The Ben Stiller Show, Roseanne, Seinfeld, The King of Queens, Clerks, Mob City, Jimmy Kimmel Live, Parks and Recreation, Real Time with Bill Maher, and Family Guy. And in the films Mystery Men, I Woke Up Early the Day I Died, and this one I think I've heard of, The Aristocrats. She's written and...
She,
I have it written down. She... So I think you're going to have to cut your dick off, please. If you could, it would... Because it cost a lot to retape these. So just
no worries.
Chop your dick off. She has written... She, with her big breasts and neatly trimmed bush, has written and starred in several of her own stand-up comedy specials, including Dana Gould, Let Me Put My Thoughts in You, and Dana Gould, I Know It's Wrong. But wait, there's more. She, has also written for popular and successful TV shows and spent 7 seasons as a producer and staff writer on a little-known, short-lived series called The Simpsons. His terrific podcast is called, appropriately enough, The Dana Gould Hour, and his brand-new horror comedy series, which he wrote and created, called Stand Against Evil, premieres November 2nd on IFC. Please welcome to the show one of the hardest working women in show business, the illegitimate love child of Ernest Thesiger and Maria Uspinskaya, our pal Dana Gould.
That whole intro should end with, and still can't break through. And yet he's still in the clubs. Comedians he's never heard of are selling out the Enormo Dome and stadiums.
Yes. See him MC on open mic night.
He's going to Minneapolis next week to do 6 shows in 3 days.
Did we get the date right? The premiere date on Stand
Yes, you
Against
did.
Evil?
Yeah, the first they're sneaking 2 episodes. First of all, thank you for that. As a woman in comedy, it's not easy for me to assert myself.
It's such a boys' club comedy.
Neatly trimmed.
It really is.
Neatly trimmed bush was my favorite part of that intro.
The what?
The neatly trimmed bush was my favorite part of that intro. You're in town.
I
should tell people.
I don't think people have bushes at all anymore either. That seems
No.
like a dated reference.
No, it is dated.
Now, what are you feeling about a girl with a bush?
I honestly, if we're going to go there, I prefer it.
Yo, don't go there.
There, I said. No, I have 3 daughters, so the last time I saw a vagina with no hair on it, it was covered in its own feces. So, yeah, I don't like the denuded pedundum.
I like a neatly trimmed bush. That's all I have.
I like it big. I like it to look like Lenny Kravitz is tying their shoes. Just all scraggly and like the little sticker with eyes that used to come on the back of a Plymouth Duster.
Oh, yes.
What a reference. Oh.
You want it to look like a tarantula that's been run over on the highway.
A bear cub that lost an argument with the steamroller. Yes.
But getting back to Stand Against Evil.
Sure.
You know what? A really big, unruly bush.
Goes.
Yeah, let's...
Joanne
Worley.
Rutherford Hayes.
No, Jacqueline Onassis.
Oh,
Yes,
the Ron,
and I
the
saw
Ron
it.
Galella
yes,
pictures.
Yeah.
yes. That was that went
Yeah.
up to her shoulders.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, that.
It was
Yeah,
more like a vest.
Yeah, it started at her knees and went up to her shoulders.
it looked like she was hiding behind a black kite. And yet, I saw those in Hustler, I believe.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
are those photos.
Yeah, back in
That
the day.
was an unruly bush.
Yeah, that's what really
But
killed
you know
him.
something, when you think of these old-time glamorous actresses like Ingrid Bergman or Rita Hayworth and Joan Crawford, they must have all had like this massive
Yeah,
bush.
they didn't. That's a relatively new thing, that level of personal grooming. Yeah, you look at, Rita Hayworth, and she looked like an aerial photo of Angela Davis. Now, and now even guys, like people, because I, got divorced a couple years ago and had to date and didn't know how to date anymore, and it's a joke for my act, but it's true. It's like I was just so trained as a husband, I didn't, just go up to women, hi. So I was sitting there, and I thought you might have a long list of chores and errands you wanted me to do. I know we just met, but I thought you might want to tell me what I did wrong. And
That's funny.
and people's like, do you manscape? I'm like, no. I don't need it to look. It's bad enough that it looks like chicken parts. I don't need it to look like chicken parts on the shelf at the store. I'm fine with it looking like chicken parts that have been thrown on the floor of a busy barber shop.
I want to see you segue from this into George Zucco. I want to see how you artfully
George
make the
Zucco.
transition.
You couldn't fit her bush under a fez. Speaking of fezes, the great George Zucco.
George Zucco had a very neatly trimmed bush.
Dana sent me an email saying he just wanted to talk about George Zucco, Dwight Fry, and Lionel Atwill.
Okay, now
big
Lionel
ones.
Atwill.
Yeah, the big ones.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know Lionel Atwill, shame on you.
Yeah.
But
Why are
when,
you listening to this
when,
podcast?
when you
Exactly.
see in like Young Frankenstein,
that Kenny Mars is doing
Kenny
Lionel
Mars,
Atwill.
That's
and
right.
he with the wooden
Arm.
and so that's Lionel Atwill. I
Also
think
famously played Dr. Cyclops.
Correct?
yes,
Very good.
yes,
Yeah.
and wasn't he also one of the Professor Moriarty's, or was
Probably,
George
yeah.
Zucco was
Yeah,
Professor Moriarty?
with Basil Rathbone
Yeah,
and the old,
yeah.
But Lionel Atwill, who was a very, very popular working actor in the 30s and 40s, and people forget that, like Hollywood and all of that stuff, debauchery isn't a new invention.
No.
It goes all the way back. And Lionel Atwill, who's a very famous character actor, but if you read Hollywood Babylon, he also was, and I quote, an orgy master.
You like that term.
I did. It's sort of like
I feel like the music behind it should be.
There's an auctioneer element to it. There's a square dance calling element to it. Yeah. A good orgy master is the cousin of the square dance caller.
Yes. Because I knew, and he got in trouble with the law a few times.
Well, somebody was, a lot of young actresses were known as the 5 o'clock girls. That's what they were calling.
Yeah.
You'd get a contract. You get a 1-year contract with Metro Goldwyn Mayer, and they'd put you on salary. But basically, it was just like, go see this guy at 5, and there you go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Marilyn Monroe was famously a 5 o'clock girl, and some of them broke out of it, and some of them didn't. It was the wild, wild west at the time, and it was sort of an open secret. And Lionel Atwill, unfortunately, there was one of these girls happened to be underage, and somebody told somebody, and it was I don't think anybody cared, but they cared about it getting out. And when it looked like it was going to get out, poor Lionel Atwill got arrested.
Yeah, they said Lionel Atwill at one point showed up on the set of one of his movies crying because he really thought he was going to prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the guy who they found him in his bathtub in like S&M gear? He found dead. He was in his bathtub
God.
in
Oh, my
S&M
God.
gear.
Albert Decker.
Albert Decker.
Albert
He was
Decker.
Dr. Cyclops. Albert
Yes,
Decker
he
was
was
Dr. Cyclops. Not
Albert
Lionel Atwell.
Decker, they found him hanging in his shower with a gag.
Full bush.
Yeah, full bush. Yeah. No, I think it was a full Reagan. It was a full Eisenhower. He had a gag in his mouth.
Yeah.
On blindfold. He was chained. He was handcuffed.
Yeah.
His nipples. He drew like little suns on them.
Yes. Yeah.
And then wrote obscene words and drawings all over his body. And the police came and said suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
really?
Yeah.
He has beautiful handwriting on his own back.
While that's
why he killed
in handcuffs.
While in handcuffs and bugging. He shot himself 13 times.
Yeah.
He was so upset.
Like, he was in handcuffs, and yet he was still able to hang himself. So, like, Houdini was reading that going, how the fuck is this guy so good?
Yeah, and there's also now it's all coming back to me. And there was $72,000 in cash missing from his apartment.
Oh yes,
he was just buying a new house, and that went missing. But yeah, it was because back then in the LAPD it was just like pervo.
Oh yes,
right,
sure.
Suicide.
Another one, a horrible death was
Raymond Navarro.
Raymond Navarro.
Yeah, I knew you were going there.
What happened to Raymond Navarro? That I don't know.
He had two guys.
Was male hustlers?
Yeah,
that killed him.
Two male
supposedly?
hustlers.
Yeah, allegedly.
And he had redecorated his room, and he said to describe how much money it costs to redecorate. He goes something like, "I have $10,000 in this room." And these two hustlers thought, he's got actual 10,000.
Oh, no. He meant he put it into this room.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And they beat him for hours. And I think he, like choked to death on his own blood or his teeth or something.
Yeah.
They tortured him.
Oh,
and I think they got away with it.
And it was also, and he must have been like, "You idiots!
Yes.
What I meant, I put $10,000.
Yes.
No, you moron!
Yeah, and I think they got away with it.
Yeah. Oh God. Well, that was another really gross one. Is Montgomery Clift when he got in his car accident? He was leaving Elizabeth Taylor's house, driving down Laurel Canyon, where I drive every day, taking my kids to school. He got in a horrible car accident. They heard the crash. Elizabeth Taylor literally drove down and saved his life by yanking his teeth out of his throat.
That's what I heard. She was reaching into his mouth.
Yeah, to pull his teeth
pulling
out.
the teeth that were choking him to death.
God. And there's a movie, I forget the name of the movie, but like in the first half of the movie, he's fine. In the second half of the movie, something just looks off.
Oh, wow.
And that's the one that he had the car accident right in the middle of it.
And there's a story Merv Griffin told that he got a knock on his door, and he answered it, and some guy was standing there. And Merv was saying, "Yeah, can I help you?" And the guy said, "You don't know me either, huh?" And it was Montgomery Clift after the accident.
Yeah, somebody told us that story.
I think I told it about 20
Maybe
times.
you did.
But yeah,
wow.
He was going from house to house of people who knew him to see if anyone could recognize him.
Oh, my God. No, I met Merv Griffin. Did you do Merv's show?
No, never did Merv.
I met him. I never did the show.
A lot of people have done Merv, but not me.
But I did. He owned a place in Palm Springs. He owned like a resort in Palm Springs. Yeah. And a friend of ours had their birthday party there. And I did, it was a big fancy schmancy birthday party, and I wore like a white tuxedo with a fez, like it was that kind of like a big fancy birthday party. And I swear to Christ, I turned around, there was Merv Griffin, and he just went, "Ooh, a fez. Ava Gabor had one of those." I'm not making that up. I have no reason to make that up.
My new favorite story on
the show. But I love that he name-checked one of the Gabor sisters in like a 7-second meeting.
Yeah.
He's like,
she was one of his peers.
I just have to mention, it was her, I have to mention Ava, Zsa Zsa, or Mrs. Miller, and then I'm good. It's an official meeting.
She was one of the covers, Ava Gabor.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it was really funny the way he just, Ava Gabor, okay, good. Yeah, Mrs. Miller, good, okay, great.
Has Mrs. Miller ever come up on this show before? I don't think so.
Oh,
That's a great old
Mrs.
reference too.
Miller.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Merv, I will say, in the 7 seconds that I met him, lovely guy. Seemed like a great guy.
Yeah.
Man with two brains did that. Was
sure.
You know,
Oh, yes.
And a
Very good
sense of
friends with
humor
Steve
about
Martin.
himself. His headstone says, "I won't be right back." After
Oh,
these
really?
messages.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah,
Good for him.
Had a sense of humor. You know, the Atwill thing makes me wonder if
Not like that son of a bitch, Mike Douglas.
Bob Einstein was on with us a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
He told some wonderful Mike Douglas stories. But the Atwill situation makes me wonder if there were Hollywood fixers involved.
Oh,
if there
tons, yeah.
in those days, but even like Universal, which wasn't.
Well, people like Eddie
Eddie
Mannix and all those guys. Yeah, they made problems go away all the time.
That Atwill story is the kind of.
Both Clark Gable, John Huston, and Busby Berkeley got into drunken car accidents where they killed people.
Uh-huh.
And it was just
Went away.
swept away.
Yeah. And there was a huge problem with a lot of these big East Coast investors were brought out west, and they were going to have a Wild West party, and I think it was MGM, and they had all the 5 o'clock girls, and it was just a debauchery. And one of these girls like blew the whistle, like, "Hey,
wow,
we were just supposed to show up and fuck these dudes."
Yeah.
And it was like, so she never, she found herself back in Wisconsin.
Did you see the Coen Brothers movie about the fixer?
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
It was
Hail Caesar.
Yeah, kind of accurate. I think there was there's a lot of really interesting. It was just especially Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, which was, it was like it was like an economy unto itself. It was so powerful. There's a lot of stuff that went on that just got
It makes you wonder why some things surfaced, and like Arbuckle and Lionel Atwill, how some things came to the surface and others did not.
I think when everybody's doing something dirty and some guy gets caught, everybody, even psychologically, projects their own guilt onto that person.
Oh, yes.
So it's like, Fatty Arbuckle didn't do anything.
No.
He didn't do any. All he did.
That whole story that and to this day, when you say Fatty Arbuckle,
You think Coke bottle?
Yeah, Coke bottle. He raped her with a Coke bottle, and
Virginia Raff.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
And first of all, she
He
was like,
he didn't make love to her with a Coke bottle. No,
yes.
But he was acquitted finally.
Yeah, but it didn't matter because his career was totally destroyed,
annihilated.
And she died, I think it was a botched abortion.
Yeah, it was internal bleeding after a botched abortion. It had nothing to do with it. He was he called the police, he did everything.
And I think the reason the Coke bottle was there is she was complaining that her stomach hurt.
Yeah.
And he thought that would ease it.
help her. Yeah, and there's all those and I think it was because he was Fatty Arbuckle that he was like a family friendly comedian that that always, and you see that nowadays with people that have, they do something wrong and they're a family-friendly person.
Could we name some people?
I hate to. They're friends. We all know they're all lovely people. I love them. But yeah, and people just point and shriek and.
And there's always got to be like the scapegoat. At any time.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just like, what were their names? The two German black guys, the singers.
Oh, Milli Vanilli?
Milli Vanilli.
Yeah.
So Milli
You don't hear just the phrase German black guys. You never hear that.
Wow. They originally called themselves German black guys. They call themselves those Nazi Schwarzes.
That didn't stick, huh?
Yeah.
How did Nazi Schwarzer not work?
People had trouble
Milli
spelling
Vanilli is German for Nazi Schwarzer. Not a lot of people know that.
And I felt like with Milli Vanilli, they got crucified, and of course now nobody has their voice dubbed in.
Yeah.
And there are no tricks in the music business with people.
No, not at all. Well, and then there's things like, the Fatty Arbuckle story is like Pete Townsend. Pete Townsend was sexually abused as a child. Not just anybody who writes the song "Fiddle About."
Oh wow.
And he later in his life had this idea that all of these illegal underage child pornography sites you still had to give a credit card to access them, even though they were on the dark internet. And what he wanted to do, and this is his crime, was being a dumb, naive rock star. Yeah. He thought, well, you know what I'll do? I will go onto one of these sites and then trace the charge to what bank is handling these. Then I'll report the bank to the police, and I will expose this giant crime. What he didn't realize is people are already doing that. Yeah. And he called the police and said, I'm going to do this. And they went, great. And then his name came up, and another, it was like policeman A knows he's doing it. Policeman B doesn't know. So he got arrested for accessing child pornography. And, when this excuse, no, I am, but I was researching this thing. Well, if you look, he never was charged with anything. He was acquitted. As part of his plea deal, he has to register, I think, as a sex offender, but he didn't do anything. He did exactly what he said he would do, but it's just that third rail of behavior. It's just like, nah, kids, don't care.
Yeah.
As opposed to Gary Glitter, who was actually
Gary,
up to stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've ever seen Mr. Glitter's Neighborhood, it's a children's show. A raincoat is an outfit in your neighborhood. But poor Pete Townsend was just guilty of being a dumb, naive rock star. Like, let the police. Why did the police do that? Let the police handle it.
Yeah, I think they've got much more advanced methods than you. Yeah.
Well, I love when people get so out of touch. Like, if you ever read the book Elvis, What Happened? Like, towards the end, like the Vegas, he would literally pull the car over and move, think he'd moved clouds with his hands. He was really, it's so, Elvis in the early 70s and Howard Hughes in the 70s, when it gets so gothic and Baroque and just bizarre and just the depths of depravity and debauchery that these people fall into, I can't get enough of it.
Now, somebody told me that Judy Garland, forget it. I mean, she was totally gone for years in her later years. And I don't know why, but she used to shit in a bucket. This guy told me.
I know of an actress.
This show's taking a strange turn.
We'll be talking about Lady from Shanghai.
Wow, how do we get back to Dwight Fry?
We'll talk about the bicycle thief in a minute.
Dorothy wanted a toilet. Yeah. The lion wanted courage.
And Judy Garland wanted courage to shit in a toilet.
I know of an actress, popular actress, who would only wipe her backside with baby wipes, but wouldn't put them into the toilet in her trailers, so she would throw them into the shower stall, in those little trailers.
Oh, jeez.
And the PA's job was to, after she used it, they would have to go in and clean up all these baby wipes.
Oh!
Yeah, I'll tell you.
And who's this actress?
I'll tell you off. She's alive. I don't want to get
sued.
We'll
be besieged by requests.
Could she be described as a pretty woman?
Or a golden girl, perhaps? No, I'll tell you after. I don't.
Get us sued. Go ahead.
I don't want to get sued.
Was it Susan Anton?
No.
Just wanted to see.
Oh, because she was Golden Girl.
Yes.
Nice.
That's where I was going.
Funny girl.
It rhymes with mailer miffed, but I really don't want to. I don't want to put mine.
Let's get back on the train here, Dana.
Does it rhyme with Hitney Bears?
It rhymes with Blachel Blow Blama, but I can't tell you who it is.
Some shows go so off the rails so quickly.
Bariana Blondie.
All right. I found this interesting. I listened to a couple of podcast interviews with you. I'm gonna stay on the cards. No matter what it takes.
He's like Trump on the teleprompter. He's gonna hammer this thing out.
That's it. I found this interesting. I did not know. I never thought of this.
Was it Pone Horford?
Oh, come now. What was that one?
Pone Horford.
Oh, okay. Lucille Lesueur? Was that not her real name, Joan Crawford?
Yes, Louise Lesueur.
Was it Hetty Vavis?
I've lost control.
Marilyn and... It was a ventriloquist dummy. He says Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe.
These would all make great Drew Friedman strips, by the way, wouldn't they?
Hey, Miles.
We were talking about Drew before we turned the mics on. I didn't know. I never thought of
what movie were you in with this actress?
I've never worked with her. This was a PA told me the worst thing.
And what movie was
she was not
working on?
It was just a show. It was a show. She's a TV actress, and it was just PA. I was like, what was the worst like who's the biggest asshole? Worst thing you ever heard? And it was like this was the worst thing that I'd ever heard about.
So she would just.
It could have just. This could be. One of those apocryphal stories like Sylvester Stallone getting a blowjob and his mic is still on. You know that one?
Oh, yeah, sure. We've heard that one.
Yeah. It would have been funny if the voice came out like, cut the balls, stroke the shift. Now say my name. Sylvester Stallone. I was like, who's he in there with?
By the way, every story we tell on the show is an apocryphal story.
He's in there with Mom's Mabley. Yeah. Boy, oh boy. He's in there with Peg Bracken.
Peg Bracken.
Arnold Stang is giving Arnold Schwarzenegger a blowjob. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold's getting blown by Arnold Stang.
Now, you said Dwight Fry.
I heard Dwight Fry was a Christian Scientist, and that is why he died of probably a preventable heart attack.
Oh, he didn't want to go to a doctor?
Didn't want to go to the doctor.
He died on a bus, did he not?
Died on the bus going to work at the aircraft.
He was a tool maker.
Yeah, at Douglas Aircraft or something down in Laguna Beach or something, yeah.
And I think his last words were,
very underrated actor.
He was terrific.
Renfield, we should explain.
He was Renfield in the original Dracula. He was Fritz the Hunchback in the original Frankenstein.
And then he came back as Carl.
In Bride of Frankenstein, yes. Very good. Yeah. And he, especially in Dracula, which is not a great movie.
Yeah.
The first 10, 15 minutes sets up every trope of every horror movie you will see for the rest of your life.
Oh, yes.
But then it's a play, it's a film play, it's very boring.
There are parts of Dracula where you go, wow, where there are actual camera shots.
Yeah.
Where you go, wow, this could have been, it's not like they didn't have the talent to do it. But I think somewhere along the way, said, no, the studio said, we want just the play.
I think Todd Browning, who directed it, was kind of over it by then, and because he was a giant director he directed all of Lon Chaney Sr.'s great films.
Yes.
And I think he was just over it by that time, and he was like, whatever. And I believe I might be mistaken, but I believe Carl Freund was the DP.
Yeah, he was the cinematographer.
Right, and he was like, anything that's good in that movie was him. And he later directed, I think, Mark of the Vampire, which is a lot of those things. But like Bela Lugosi, all the roles, Helen Chandler, David Manners, they're all very sweaty and stage-bound and very that over-the-top, can't you say I love you?
Yes, sure.
But Dwight Fry gives a very modulated, moderate, modern performance. Like in the opening scene where Bela Lugosi goes, Mr. Renfield, and he just goes, it's good to see you. Like it's a very genuine laugh because he's just behaving like a regular guy.
And like Lugosi, he was the absolute last choice.
Yeah.
And without Lugosi, can you imagine what an awful film that would have been?
Yeah, it was nothing. And that Bela Lugosi, it was just one of these, could not buy a fucking break.
No.
With a get a break free card. That guy could not get your goddamn break.
He went right from A-list star to immediately Z level.
Yeah. And I think it was, I don't know what it was. I assume when he turned down Frankenstein, people just thought the guy who ran Universal.
Carl
Laemmle.
Laemmle. Yeah, I just thought, well, he's a pain in the ass. Screw it.
Yeah.
And then when Karloff came in, like, all right, we'll use Karloff instead. And that's why that scene in Ed Wood is so brilliant when Martin Landau just is standing in the swamp with a rubber octopus and he just goes, I turned down Frankenstein. I don't think he really said that, but that it's so beautiful when he does that whole monologue. And that's one of those moments, that movie where I did have like a transcendent moment. Like I'm watching a movie about Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi is talking about turning down Frankenstein, and it's beautiful. It's really like, how did this get made? It's to paraphrase Andy Kindler, like the target audience of this movie is men my age who are me.
It's a great film. We've had Scott and Larry here.
Yeah, they're
friends.
Yeah, since seeing that movie, they've become really good friends of mine, and but like that specific movie is not lost. Or did you ever see another movie they were involved in, Autofocus?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
sure.
with Greg Kinnear.
Bob Crane
the scene
story.
where the guy who looks just like Clink is feeling the girl's tits in Hogan's fantasy. I was just like, this is really happening. I'm watching a movie where a guy who looks like Colonel Clink is having a sex fantasy of Bob Crane. It's so insane that these things, and again, like nothing is crazier than what really happens.
Yeah, it's like the two main Nazis were Jews. Klink escaped Germany.
Yeah.
Werner Klemperer.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They escaped. His father was Otto Klemperer, who was a very popular composer.
Yeah, that's what I thought so. Right, yeah.
And John Banner, who was Schultz,
right.
He was actually in the camps with his parents.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
And somehow they didn't have it as organized, and it was the beginning of the concentration camps. And they somehow survived this.
And what is interesting is that you couldn't do that show today, but you could do it in 1966, even though the people that were there at the time actually experienced it. Like we don't know, no one around today, that would be involved in creating this show has any firsthand experience with Nazis, concentration camps, World War II. But you couldn't do that show.
Yeah.
Back then, everybody was in World War II or knew people and remembered it, but they could do that show then. It's amazing how that.
Yeah.
Suddenly people just after 50 years went, the Nazis really were bad.
Now you forget his name
Who's
already.
that?
The French guy.
Robert Clary.
Robert Clary.
Robert Clary. His parents,
that
his
I did
whole
know.
family were killed.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, what's the weird thing is I don't know what the decision on this was, but in the camps they used ovens. So what did Klink use? The cooler. We'll just go in the opposite direction entirely. All right, you'll just be. Everyone's so cold. That's the problem.
You used to do that Hogan's Heroes bit in your act.
Oh yeah.
About the pitching the series.
I used to say, how did one guy walk into a network one day and go, here's the idea. A group of soldiers in a Nazi prison.
Remember this.
It's a comedy.
Doesn't the guy say, give me 26?
Yes.
We should get Al Ruddy. You know, Al Ruddy produced The Godfather and also Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, I didn't know he also
produced
Hogan's Heroes.
Not a lot of people still alive. Clary's still alive, but all the rest of the cast is gone.
Yeah.
The Hogan's Heroes
But
cast.
that is so weird.
And I still watch them. Do you watch them on MeTV?
Oh, yeah.
They're fascinating.
And it's, those, like a lot of stuff, you watch it now, and that almost uniquely is insane when you look at it now.
Oh, my God.
It's like, how, there's certain things that are so, there's this, again, and also, in the early Connery Bond movies.
Yeah.
He's a serial rapist.
Oh, yes. Yes.
In Thunderball,
Interesting.
he out and out rapes a woman. He goes into a steam room, and she's in there. And she goes, "Oh, no, Mr. Bond." And he just stands in front of the door and shuts it and goes, oh, yes, and close the door. Well,
Oh, yeah.
at a certain point in between 1965 and today, rape went from being this thing
It
that
became
cool
illegal.
guys did. It became
Well, you were talking last week. We were talking about the Matt Helm pictures and the Coburn pictures, the Flint pictures.
in Flint,
Gilbert was remarking about how incredibly sexist they were.
Yeah, it's
They're
like,
insane.
I'm not some big feminist by any means, but I watch those and I go, wow, this is really.
It's insane, and then the movie they just go on with it, like the woman never shows up later with a bunch of cops. That's him in the tuxedo and the jetpack. Did you have sex with her after she said no? Well, you might say I got on with a pressing engagement. I can't stay mad at you. Guy Court.
He's so good with those puns.
Yeah,
How can I convict him?
Yeah. Well, Ian Fleming, who wrote the Bond books, was incredibly. He said in one of the books or in an interview, like, every woman enjoys a soft rape or something like that. And incredibly racist, in all of the books. The book Live and Let Die might as well have been written by David Duke. I mean, it's so brutally racist. And it's, it was not, it was within our lifetime that this stuff was just common.
It's so funny that we were talking like how when Hogan's Heroes was on, it was really like the Holocaust was an hour away.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not long ago.
No, and I don't know if because it was so recently that people were like it hadn't sunk in yet, that they were still in shock, like a post-cultural shock.
Well, it's 20 years, yeah. 65.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If people were still like in shock about it, in the way that like people like, they wouldn't, people that served in World War II like didn't talk about it.
Yes. Yeah.
And then one day just before they died, I saw the guy's head off. Anyway.
What else did you watch growing up? You're from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
What did you watch as a kid?
All the same stuff. My favorite shows, I loved, the original Star Trek was a big part of my childhood because it was a very chaotic house. I have 4 brothers and a sister. It was just always chaos. I think there have been 2 occasions in my life when my entire family and I sat at the dinner table at the same time. It was just people came and went, and my parents were drunk all the time, and my brothers were drunk all the time. It was really just madness. And but every night at 6, Star Trek was on, and so like that was not to get too like airy fairy, but it was like that was a great. I needed some kind of stability, and that was like Star Trek's on at 6 on Channel 56.
Wow.
Yeah, and Creature double features on Saturday from 12 to 4.
Did you have Karloff Schiller, too?
Yeah, we had Chiller. We had, I was
not Schiller.
Thriller.
Thriller, sorry.
Yeah, Thriller and Twilight Zone was
Boris
big.
Karloff.
Yeah.
Thriller.
Did you have a local
Night Gallery
horror?
was big.
Night Gallery. We've talked about Night Gallery.
Now, both Thriller, which I hadn't seen for years.
Yeah, they're out
since
now.
I was a kid. Now they're on TV.
Yeah, they're on DVD, too.
And they don't hold up.
No. It was
At
not as
all.
good as Alfred Hitchcock Presents is pretty good. Perry Mason holds up although none of those trials, every one of those trials is a mistrial.
Oh, of course.
You can't stand up and go, I did it.
Yeah.
There's a procedure.
You know what drives me nuts is those things look dopey enough in the old courtroom shows and courtroom movies.
Yeah.
And then they come out with A Few Good Men,
Same thing.
and Jack Nicholson goes, I did it. I killed him. And I thought, what? Mm-hmm. This is what I've been sitting for 2 hours to find out?
It was that other movie, Black Rain. Oh, no, there's some movie where
That was
Connery.
Milli Vanilli.
Sean Connery. Sean Connery is researching a murder in Japan or something. I think it's Black Rain. And it literally ends with like Michael Douglas, and at the end of the movie goes, he did it. And then the guy goes like, I didn't do it, he did it. And that's the end of the movie.
Oh, God. But I remember even as a kid, there was some night galleries I kind of liked, but I always thought they don't hold
No,
up
they
at
don't. Although the
And
Roddy
they're-
McDowell one is scary. The
Oh,
pilot.
that pilot.
pilot.
episode.
Portafoy,
Yeah, that was
come here,
that's
Portafoy.
pretty terrifying.
Yeah, the pilot episode's good.
It was written by Rod Serling. Steven Spielberg directed one of those segments.
Yeah,
that was his first
that's
job.
the one. Oh, Richard Kiley is the Nazi who's trying to escape. And Joan Crawford.
And Tom Bosley.
Joan Borford.
Yeah. Joan Borford went through a lot of baby wipes.
But all of those, the Night Gallery ones, when I watch those, that is everything that was wrong with 70s TV.
Yes,
well
and they're really cursed by, like, Artie Johnson is the devil. Bert Convey is a Vietnam War veteran who becomes a tree or something.
Well, they had one big scary story about either a haunted house or the devil that as a married couple was Bob Crane from Hogan's Heroes and Joanne Worley.
And that's the one that you see the shadow typing. Yeah. I actually met Roddy McDowall. My friend was a very good friend of his and actually owns the Lawgiver statue, the 9-foot ape statue from Planet of the Apes.
Wow.
And my friend Brian owns that. And he was very good friends with Roddy, and I actually have a picture of myself and Roddy McDowall in front of that statue. That my friend Brian took. And he was famous for being like everyone's friend. Like he would he would have parties and you go Gregory Peck, Fred Grandy from the Love Boat. You both play backgammon, and he would mix and match people. And everybody loved Roddy McDowall. He was everybody's friend. And he lived in this beautiful house. And right across the street was the guy that owns the Los Angeles Angels, the cowboy.
Gene Autry.
Gene Autry lived right across the street. And they both died on the same day.
Wow.
In 1998.
I didn't know that.
And then a person bought the house from Roddy McDowall, and then we bought it from him. So we lived there for years and years and years. Not haunted. Wherever he went, he's happy he was there. Yeah. But there's a picture of me and Roddy McDowall in front of the Planet of the Apes Lawgiver statue hanging in his old house.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. We had Ileana Douglas on the show.
She also told me stories about going to his house.
She's close to Roddy.
Yeah, she told me a lot of stories about going there.
And perfect segue, Dr. Zaius.
Yes. Who he didn't play.
No, but
that was another famous British queen, Maurice
Evans. Yes. But since we're talking about Planet of the Apes, there's some wonderful clips on the internet of you.
I have to do Roddy first. Oh, Roddy. Here's Roddy from that Night Gallery. Portafoy, come here, Portafoy. What's amazing in Battle for the Planet of the Apes, where he manages to be a furious, angry military leader and incredibly fey at the same time.
Yes.
Fight like apes. Just fight like. And I actually thought in the new Andy Serkis movies that they should still have given him Roddy McDowall's voice. Like even though he's this big photorealistic chimp, he's like, Caesar is home. We must fight the humans.
Was Ozzie Davis in that Night Gallery episode?
Yes, he was
Portafoy.
He was Portafoy. And Greg Nicotero, who, if you watch The Walking Dead, you see his name on the credits. He's executive producer of The Walking Dead and one of the big directors. He paid an artist to do a copy of that painting and has another painting with the body coming out of the cemetery. Remember that? Because was a painting of the and he has it in his house, and then occasionally he'll just switch them out to see if his kids notice.
Oh, wow.
That's fun. And I saw you in that short film he made where you played Lon Chaney Jr.
I played Lon Chaney. I played
the transformation.
Greg's a good buddy of mine, and I was in the middle of doing a pilot for ABC, and Greg called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to direct the short movie." I'd worked on it with him, so I knew what he was doing. And he said, "Do you want to be in it?" And I said, "This is the week I'm producing. I can't do it. We're in production." He goes, "I really wanted you to play the Wolfman. We're going to do a transformation like they did in the 40s." And I literally moved the production a day.
You should see it, Gil. It's fun.
And to do it, because it was like, how do you not do that?
Oh, my God, yeah.
And it's itchy as hell. It's itchy as hell.
What's funny
about it? No wonder Lon drank.
Even when I was a kid, and I'd watch these transformations, I knew how they did it.
Yeah.
I could figure it out. But I think they're still so much more effective than when they do the computerized morphing.
I heard the most brilliant thing, and it's attributed to Roger Ebert, and I just heard it the other day. And it's actually something that I hammered home on Stand Against Evil, because that's 98% practical effects. And that's that. It was about stop motion animation. It's like King Kong.
Yeah.
Stop motion looks fake but feels real.
Yes.
CGI looks real but feels fake.
That's interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
that's
brilliant.
exactly
That's
it.
exactly it. I can always tell, even the best CGI I can tell.
Because with King Kong, I mean, that was like the most primitive stop action. And I mean, as a kid, I knew exactly it was a miniature doll. And yet, when you watch that, you know you could touch King Kong.
Yeah.
And you don't feel like in the new King Kong movies you can't touch that.
It's not tactile. There's
Yeah.
no tactile. And you know what's funny? When you look at the original King Kong, it looks like his fur is moving.
Yes, yeah.
That's the animator's thumb. That's when they grab the armature to move it. It's his thumbprints, but
and
it looks great.
People started praising them,
Yeah.
saying what a brilliant idea to have his hair stand on end in those scenes.
And my friend my friend Bob Burns owns King Kong, the 18-inch armature.
We got to
Burns.
get Bob on the show. How's he doing?
Bob's good. He's actually doing very well.
Good.
He
Good.
is.
We should talk to Bob
'Cause
Burns.
I was wondering how he was doing because I'd love to talk to Bob
you
Burns.
can Skype him or come out. I don't know if he's flying anywhere soon, but
We'll do a Skype with him.
Yeah,
yeah.
I could set that up for him.
I would love to talk to
Oh,
Bob
Bob's the
Burns.
best. Bob's great. Bob's great. And stories out, and he'll tell you stories about Lon Chaney Jr. stuff. He told me this story. The most amazing thing that I've ever happened, like one of those. I know Bob very well. You know, I'm a monster guy, and I'm in the monster circles. And I don't know how else to put it. I don't know. You know, you either know who Forrest Ackerman was or you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or
exactly.
Heidi Saha, if you know what that is.
Oh, is that the girl with
Yeah,
the
that
yellow
was-
eyes?
She was this 14, 13-year-old girl that they did a photo book about.
It was kiddie porn.
Yes, and Isaac Asimov was like, I love her. She's
They
wonderful.
had her in like a loincloth.
It was
or
insane. It is this crazy anomaly that it's like that you couldn't do today.
It was acceptable child porn.
Yes, and there was stuff literally like, what a lucky chair to have been sat in by Heidi Saha. Like, that's so
yes.
insane. But you either know these people or not. At Bob Burns' house, I have held in my hand the flying saucer. Bob Burns, I've held in my hand Joan Crawford's bush. The flying saucer that
bucket of
bucket of shit
From Judy Garland. I held in my hand.
the flying saucer from Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Oh, wow.
Then
cool.
You can see the holes drilled into it. You can see the square that they glued on the bottom to make it match the set.
And I remember he told a story that when Lon Chaney Jr. died, nobody wanted to bother to talk about him.
No.
And I think, he gathered a lot of enemies over the years because he was a drunk and everything. But he went over to Glenn Strange's house.
Yeah, well, Glenn Strange was like Bob Burns's dad, really.
Yeah.
Like they were profoundly close. And Bob, as a young man, because for people who don't know, like in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Frankenstein Monsters, Glenn Strange, a lot of the images that people have in their mind of Frankenstein is actually Glenn Strange, not Boris Karloff.
Yes.
He was also the bartender on Gunsmoke.
Yes, he was.
When I was a kid, I remember this. Boris Karloff died, and the New York Times had a picture of Glenn Strange.
Oh, that's depressing.
I remember that, yeah. But
here's one of these things I'm very proud of knowing, even though I think old monster geeks know this. In Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, there's one part where Frankenstein throws the girl through the window, and that's Lon Chaney Jr.
It's Lon Chaney Jr. Yeah, it is Lon Chaney Jr. Yeah.
Glenn Strange had sprained his ankle or something.
And there's have you seen there's outtakes of that movie on YouTube? There's a reel of outtakes of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein on YouTube that you can see.
Yeah.
There's three really fascinating things. One, there's a scene where Abbott sits on Costello sits on Glenn Strange.
Starts laughing.
And starts, which is so insane to see. And then there's another one you just see every time Lou Costello messes up. You just see Lon Chaney like shrug and go back to one. Like he's so over it.
Yeah,
like, he's not entertained by Lou Costello at all.
Oh,
and you can hear all the like ha 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 like people who have to be there, and he couldn't get. And then there's one where Lou Costello says the most insanely sexist thing to the actress in the scene, where I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's something to the effect of he steps on her line or something. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry," and she goes, "It's okay." And she goes, "Okay," and then he says something like, "The only time it's going to be okay is when you say go, and then it's okay, and you just hang on."
Oh,
it's like she just like smiles.
And then there's
it's just
also
this awful,
part.
Awful.
What was the name of? I forget his name. Abbott and Costello's friend that they hired to be a kibitzer.
Right.
On
I know the guy you're talking about. The guy that plays Mr. McDougal.
No, it's not Mr. McDougal. But he does pop up in the movie.
Uh-huh.
He's like some little...
What are you talking about? Not Bobby Barber.
Oh, that could be.
The little bald guy that was in the series?
I don't know.
The one Drew's obsessed with Bobby Barber.
Yeah, but
I find that hard to believe.
Yes, I know you do.
They hired him to keep the levity up on the set.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it's like, you see him like where Lugosi's doing a scene, and he sneaks up behind Lugosi with a cape around his face, and Lugosi just kind of looks over. And it's like, if I were there too, I'd feel like, can we film this and get the fuck home?
I'm 57. I'm a morphine addict.
Yeah,
Can I just go home? Just go home and shoot up, please.
I heard you doing a podcast about horror comedies with Maltin, with Leonard Maltin.
You have?
Yeah, you did. And
no, I did Leonard's show.
You did Leonard's show.
I was talking about horror comedy.
Would you call that the most? Would you call Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein the most successful of that?
Yeah, and I've been talking about
subgenre?
this a lot because of Stand Against Evil. Because there are comedies that are set in the world of horror, like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and then there are horror films that have comedy in them, and they're different.
Yes.
And I think Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein and Young Frankenstein are probably the two most famous horror comedies. And a movie that brought this up with Leonard Maltin that I think is painfully underrated is The Ghost of Mr. Chicken, which is a Don Knotts film that has every character actor in the 60s in it.
Yep.
And is really funny, frame one to the end of the credits. It's a great...
I haven't seen it in years, but
it's
sort of an outgrowth of the Griffith Show.
Absolutely.
That movie,
And it's Don Knotts is firing on all cylinders. It's really funny. It's really great. Then there are things like An American Werewolf in London, which is a horror movie,
yes,
but it's funny.
Yeah.
Because the people in the horror movie are behaving sort of normally.
Yes.
Instead of in the heightened way that a horror film requires. But the horror is not aware that there's comedy going on. Like the scary stuff is scary.
Yeah.
And that's what Stand Against Evil is. It's basically a sitcom that's trapped in a horror movie. But we've been talking about that a lot. But it's hard because there are 7 trillion ways to do it wrong. And that happens all the time.
You know what gets me is like after Airplane and Naked Gun, people would watch these movies and go, oh, okay, I think I get it now. I'll make my own like that. And they're always horrible.
Yeah, they're always awful. Saturday the 14th being a great example of a terrible movie.
God.
Directed by Richard Benjamin, who's no dummy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it
and
doesn't
made some
work.
good movies, like My Favorite Year.
Yeah. No, it's weird that they should work, and then there's movies like Beetlejuice, which on paper shouldn't work.
Yeah.
And it does work. Or Ghostbusters, which shouldn't really work.
I remember they used to try to hire. They used to figure, well, we'll get Leslie Nielsen, and then we'll just do stuff that people recognize.
Yeah, they did a Fugitive parody.
Yes. And 2001, A Space Travesty.
Is that a movie?
Oh, you owe it to yourself to see it. Zero laugh.
I think there's an Exorcist. I think he did one called Repossessed.
Yeah,
with Linda Blair.
Well, and then Dracula Dead and Loving It, which
it's like
that's we all kind of look away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those movies that it's like
That you
don't
go,
want to
Mel,
see.
no.
Yeah, you don't have to have you don't have to make a movie. Well, we talked about Ed Wood,
Yeah.
which is I think should be enshrined in the National Mall. Like that movie is so brilliant and so beautiful.
Every performance is great.
And just every frame is beautiful in that movie. And Tim Burton clearly it resonated with him, and I think it paralleled his relationship with Vincent Price in a very strange way.
Yes.
And I ended up living that movie. I'll tell you that later. And then he makes Dark Shadows and Planet of the Apes. It's like, how can you hit it so hard and then miss it so thoroughly? You're clearly brilliant. What happens?
I don't know. Maybe it wasn't on the page.
Yeah, I don't get it. But I was a big fan of all that, Ed Wood, and that whole world was sort of like I was into it as everybody else, and wanted to. I had a show. The only job I've ever been qualified to do that I've ever wanted to do is host horror movies.
Oh, yes.
And I have friends at Turner Classic Movies. I'm like, let me do it. I'll just fly me down once a month. We'll knock out 4 of them.
Oh, yeah.
I'll do it. You don't have to pay me.
Yeah.
I just want to do it. Well, we got to run it.
It's just like I did
on USA.
USA, but I also was on
The Essentials.
Turner Classic Movies with Robert Osborne.
Right.
And I picked 4 movies and we talked. And I remember, I got some money for it.
Yeah.
Not a tremendous amount, but I thought, they're paying me for this?
It's just,
To me, I felt like I would gladly sit with Robert Osborne for 10 hours and talk over.
We had him here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was terrific.
Well, yeah.
Ileana does a great job, too, by the way.
Yes.
On TCM.
Ben Mankiewicz just interviewed me as Dr. Zaius in front of Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
Which I'll have to send you the link because it only aired in theaters. But they did it because they showed Planet of the Apes in theaters.
Yeah.
And I have, because of Greg Nicotero, I have access to that makeup. And I had done it before on YouTube. I did. It was a sketch I wrote for the Ben Stiller show, and we got canceled before I got a chance to do it. But it was Dr. Zaius doing Mark Twain Tonight.
It's great.
And so it's on YouTube. And then he goes, "Could we interview you as Dr. Zaius?" I said, "Sure." And I did it like I was on Merv. Yeah. I was just talking. He was, how did I get the film? I was doing with 6 Sugar egg roll at the Pasadena Playhouse with a very young Lindsay Wagner, who's a delight. And you need to get her on this show. Just like the Suzanne Flechette, who's a love. She's, she lives in Ojai now, has horses. I see her occasionally. But so, long story longer, I saw Ed Wood. I was so fascinated by that. And I had a friend of a friend knew Mila Nurmi, who was Vampira. And I interviewed her for this thing I did on the Sci-Fi Channel called The Big Scary Movie Show that was hosting horror movies for Halloween week in 1996 or 7. And I became very good friends with Mila Nurmi. We became very close and ended up basically recreating Ed Wood's relationship with Bela Lugosi.
Oh. Wow.
I took care of her for the last 15 years of her life and, ended up moving her into another apartment and just kind of taking care of her. But it was funny. It was like I was a fan of that movie, and then I lived that movie. I would get those 12 o'clock phone calls. I think there's someone breaking into the... No, it's...
I remember
it's a raccoon.
When Larry and Scott were on this show, they wrote Problem Child.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I said, I see a connection with Problem Child and every movie you've done after that. Like there's some sort of weird connection.
What's the connection?
Well, in some ways, number one, that they were like totally disrespected at the Problem Child, even though it was so popular.
Yep.
And so the idea of being like a joke in the business, but still being popular. And so they followed that with, movies like Ed Wood or like Eyes.
Yeah.
Which were popular.
Oh, Big Eyes, yeah.
Paintings, but everyone looked down on them.
And the original, Ed Wood was originally supposed to be directed by Michael Lehman, who had directed Hudson Hawk. That was a huge bomb.
Oh my God! Yeah,
and
Bruce,
and they wanted to do the people who wrote the most critically lambasted movie of the year, and the guy who directed the biggest bomb of the year are going to make a biopic about the worst director of all time. That was like the joke originally. And then they brought Tim in to produce it, to get it made. And then Tim read it and said, oh, I think I might want to direct this. But he had a pay or play at Columbia to do a movie called Mary Riley with Julia Roberts.
Oh, yes, with Hula Hobbits.
Yeah. And he goes, and he said, literally, it was like, well, see what you can do. So they wrote the script, and he literally, like, Tim had, like, if you can get me a script in 6 weeks, that's the end of my window for Mary Riley. And Larry says, I came home one day and I read the script, and it was on Friday night, and I came home, and there's a message on my answering machine. It was like, Larry, it's Tim. I read the script. I love it. This is going to be my next movie. I'm gonna tell Columbia I'm passing on Mary Riley, and I have no notes.
Wow.
And that was it. And they basically shot the first draft.
And it just sort of existed in a state of grace, that whole project.
Yeah, that whole thing. And then basically they shot the first draft with a couple changes just to accommodate Bill Murray's schedule.
And I remember when I said that to Scott and Larry about the connection with Problem Child, they both said that's absolutely true.
Oh, wow, that's really funny.
Well, Misfits, films about misfits.
Yeah, well, OJ is a misunderstood. A problem child.
And they wanted to make Problem Child basically into kind of a horror movie.
Yeah. Well, the weirdest story of that is, and this is going back, do you remember a movie, My Stepmother is an Alien?
Sure.
Oh, yes.
Sure, with Dan Aykroyd and Kim Basinger.
That book was about...
John Lovitz, I think, was in it.
I think so.
Yeah.
The book was originally about a kid whose stepmother was abusive.
Ooh.
And in his mind, he had to rationalize that she was an alien, and that was the only way he could get through it. Like, he created this, and it was a very dark, serious movie about a kid that created a fantasy to allow him to stay in reality.
Wow.
That people do. And they went, we got a better idea. She's really an alien. It's like,
and the thing is, that story you just told me, I was thinking I'd be fascinated to see that movie.
Yeah.
Because the way the movie turned out, it's one of the old-time worst.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's Richard Benjamin again.
It's a great example of not knowing where the scary stuff starts and the comedy lives. You know, I think Mars Attacks would be much funnier if you took the aliens from Mars Attacks and edited them into Independence Day.
Yes.
If you had if the humans are playing it straight as a heart attack and the aliens were funny, it's a much better movie than Jack Nicholson trying to be funny in a fake nose and a cowboy suit.
Yeah, I remember when I watched Mars Attacks, it seemed like I was getting annoyed that everyone's being so goofy. And look at me, I'm so funny.
It's the ingredients of a joke without it being a joke. It's like if I gave you a bowl of flour with an egg in it and said, I made you a cake.
Yes.
No,
yeah.
This is what you need to make a cake, but it's not a cake.
But that's a movie you really want to work with those people in it, and Larry and Scott's involvement and everything. Just all the elements are there.
Yeah, it's just like you got to know how to. And Dark Shadows is the same thing. You either know how to tell a joke or you don't.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be funny, and somebody has to be. You need a funny man and a straight man. Somebody needs to be normal, and somebody needs to be not normal. But it worked in Beetlejuice, so you can't criticize him.
Yeah.
Because Beetlejuice is the same goddamn thing, but it works.
It's just like when they were making Airplane, the studio said, let's get a bunch of comedians. And they said, no, let's get totally straight actors who look like they don't know they're in a comedy.
Right. That's exactly right.
It's the only reason that movie works.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just the other thing, and it's like Young Frankenstein, too, and there's just a joke every 7 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just boom, 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 which you really need.
So your career goal is really to be a horror host?
Yeah, well, it's the only thing I know how to do.
Did you have a horror host, a local one in Massachusetts growing up?
We had FEEP. That was before I was born, but I knew about FEEP. My brothers talked about FEEP. I have older brothers that were into all this stuff, so I know about stuff more than I should for my age. You know, it's like I know a lot about Dark Shadows because it was on in my house every day when I was 4 and 5 years old.
Dan Curtis.
Dan Curtis.
Yeah.
Grumpy Dan Curtis. I've got a story about that one.
Oh, do you remember those fucking awful horror TV movies that Dan Curtis
Trilogy
made?
of Terror with Karen Black and the Zuni fetish doll. That one's great.
He also made that horrible...
Jack Palance, Dr. Jekyll and
Yes.
Mr. Hyde.
That.
is
where he
terrible.
looked like Mr. Hyde in either
Didn't he do
way.
Palance's Dracula?
And he did Jack Palance's Dracula,
Yes.
too. Yeah.
And he would use the Dark Shadows music.
Yeah. Oh, Robert Colbert was the guy's name because we used it as the temp track on Stand Against Evil. Stand Against Evil looks like it was made in 1973. And that was intentional.
Yeah.
They have old cop car. It's not set in 1973. They have the internet and they have cell phones, but they have old console televisions and old cop cars. I just wanted it to feel like when Michael calls. I wanted it to feel like one of those.
I know that
great Ben.
movie.
Speaking of Ben Gazzara,
That's a creepy movie.
yeah, when Michael calls is really creepy. Aunt Am I Helen? But Dan Curtis. But he also made The Night Stalker, which was a great TV movie.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. And he made The Night Stalker. He didn't direct it. He produced it. And it was a huge hit, highest rated TV movie in history up to that point. They had no idea it was going to be this big. So the next year they made The Night Strangler. Dan Curtis fires the director, John Welwyn Moxey, and says, I'm going to direct this myself. I'm going to direct this myself. And The Night Stalker was basically a shot-for-shot remake of The Night Stalker with another monster in it. It's literally as if he had... okay, do this. And then he did it. But he was supposedly such an a-hole that on the last night they're shooting, it's a night shot, he was yelling at some poor crew member that, just punching down. And apparently Darren McGavin just said, fuck this, you got it. And he went home, and that was it.
Wow.
And when they picked it up as a TV series, he said, I'm only going to do it if Dan Curtis isn't involved. And that's why Dan Curtis wasn't on the TV series. Universal wrote him a check, and Darren McGavin produced it. Makes you like Darren McGavin even more.
I like him anyway.
Yeah.
The man with a golden arm.
Yeah. But it's like he was yelling at some crew guy, and he's like, fuck you.
So you met Roddy McDowell, you met Merv.
I've met everybody.
And you met Vincent Price.
I did meet Vincent Price.
Which you have to tell Gil.
He came to my acting class in the University of Massachusetts. As one day we just walked in and Vincent Price was in the class. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And he just, gassed on for a while.
I remember I first met Vincent Price on the Alan Thicke show, Thick of the Night. And then years later, I was at some horror convention doing something. And Vincent Price was there, and I went over to him and I said, look, you probably won't remember this, but we met on the Alan Thicke show. And he goes, oh, yes, that was a terrible show.
Okay. I'll see your Alan Thicke story.
And I'll
add a wrinkle. I did stand up at the Saturn Awards.
Yeah.
Which is the Sci-Fi Awards. And I used to do a Vincent Price bit. And it was just basically how to do a Vincent Price impression, which is he has two voices, the smooth voice, and then he spazzes out. He's like, I understand your car broke down. I insist that you stay here with us tonight. Don't talk to any of the paintings. He'd have to change gears. So I'm working at The Simpsons at the time, and sometimes during lunch, just to get out of the office, I'd go down to the Toys R Us on Pico and La Cienega and just mope around and look at toys.
Yeah.
And I swear to God this is true. I hear, oh, you're the comedian. You did Vincent Price at the Saturn Awards. And I turned around, and it was Mark Hamill.
Oh, my God.
That's fun.
Yeah. And he was there. I didn't know he was there. And we chat. And he goes, I know Vincent Price. And so this is me doing Mark Hamill telling me his Vincent Price story that's very similar to your story. He goes, I've been in a lot of movies that aren't that good, and I'm a fan of The Tingler. I love The Tingler. And when I met Vincent Price, I said, I love The Tingler. And he said, isn't that a marvelous piece of rubbish? And, when people tell me they're like Corvette Summer, I go, isn't that a marvelous piece of rubbish?
That's great.
Yeah, that's Mark Hamill telling a Vincent Price story.
All right, so this is the perfect segue for this.
To my Albert Brooks, a Stanley Kubrick story?
Take that, sir. All right, Gilbert.
Okay.
The Vincent Price impressions are so good. We did this with Michael McKean and Gilbert.
By the way, a delight.
A lovely guy.
Michael McKean.
We adored him. Great episode. So we'll call this what we called the segment the last time we did it. What was the name, Frankie? Price comparison?
That'll work.
That's the
Price comparison.
The tacky title for this.
All right.
But the impressions are so good that I think our fans would enjoy hearing dueling Vincent Prices. So, Gilbert, you want to start?
Now, is he doing the whole thing and then I'm doing the whole
Yeah.
thing? Okay.
We should, as Vincent Price, too, saying something stupid like "I love you."
Let's try the actual dialogue first.
Can we get those lyrics?
And then we stay in line.
And most of all, I'm sorry that I'm saying something stupid like I love you. Well, my Don Knotts, I used to do a bit about Don Knotts where his voice was so specific that he couldn't make obscene phone calls. And they're like, he'd like to. He's up at 2 a.m. He's in a dirty bathrobe. I've been looking at you through the bedroom window. Is this Don Knotts? God damn it. Years later, I met his daughter. His daughter, Karen.
Yes.
Who's great. Who's really sweet. And she goes, I love that bit you do about my dad. Have you heard it?
Well, here's what we'll do. Okay. Gilbert, you do yours, Dana will do his, and then we'll combine them.
Okay. Great.
Go ahead, Gil.
Perhaps your hands will shake, and he too will die under your knife. A few remaining minutes are all you have, because when the acid reaches him, he will have a face like mine.
Man. All right. Do you know where you are, Bartolome?
I'll tell you where you are.
You're about to enter hell, Bartolome.
Hell! The netherworld, the infernal region, look at the giant bush, the abode of the damned.
The place of torment.
Pandemonium, Abaddon, Tophet, Gehenna, Naraka, the pit.
And the pendulum.
But before you die, I have to tell you, the best artwork is still on sale at Sears.
That's fantastic.
Frank, find the lyrics to
Frankie, can you
saying
find
something stupid like "I love
the
you"?
Sinatra song? Okay, but since you mentioned the Tingler, go ahead. We'll do this one too.
Okay.
Gil, that's you.
So I was talking about the Tingler today.
Yours was from Fibes, and Dana's was from obviously Pit and the Pendulum.
By the way, the two Dr. Fibes movies
are fantastic.
So
yes.
really need to be. Don't remake them. Just re-release them.
They're great.
Clean them up.
They're great.
They're so. That is the movie that Tim Burton should be making.
Yeah.
Dr. Fibes.
Theater of Blood's pretty good too.
Yeah,
9 killed her and 9 will die.
That's it.
With Diana Rigg, maybe one of the most beautiful women ever.
Oh, yes.
Just walk the earth in her prime.
All right, Gil. Start us off, and then you see how it works, and then you'll do the bottom part in stereo.
Great.
We'll do it together.
Ladies and gentlemen, a word of warning. If you are not convinced that you have a tingler of your own, the next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream.
The tingler exists in every human being, we now know. Look at that tingler, Dave. It's an ugly and dangerous thing. Ugly because it's the creation of man's fear. Dangerous because a frightened man is dangerous.
And now together?
Ladies and
gentlemen, please
do not panic.
But
scream! Scream for your lives!
If only he was alive to know what was going on.
I was thinking the same thing. Fantastic.
Do you have his cookbook? I have somebody. He had like a cookbook. He was quite.
Have you seen the
erudite.
electronic trivia game? You're familiar with that?
Did you find
Vincent
those
Price?
lyrics?
No, I used to have the box for the shrunken head apple sculpture.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's also Hangman. He was on 2 board games.
Here come the lyrics.
Okay.
For you, sir.
Oh yeah.
So
For you, sir. Is that the right one? It's a little
I
small.
think. Oh shit!
Can you read it?
Yes, I can read it. Can you read it?
Yeah.
Well, you know them, Gil,
Okay.
pretty much.
Something.
Okay.
So do we want some karaoke accompaniment, or are you guys going to just do it?
Yeah, because I know we have to respond back and forth like Frank and Nancy.
Yeah. Did Frank do the first quatrain and then Nancy came in for the second, or is it every other
I think
line?
doesn't she start it and then he comes in?
I think he starts it.
He does.
Let's do it every other line to keep it exciting.
Oh, okay. I know I stand in line until you think you have the time to spend an evening with me.
And if we go someplace to dance, I know that there's a chance you won't be leaving with me.
And afterwards we drop into a quiet little place and have a drink or two.
And then I go and spoil
and
it all by
spoil
saying
it.
something
Something
stupid like
I
I love you.
I can see it in your eyes that
Mm-hmm.
you despise the same old lies you heard the night before.
And though it's just a line to you, for me it's true and never seemed so right before.
I practice every day to find some clever lines to say to make the meaning come through.
But then I think I'll wait until the evening gets late and I'm alone with you.
The time is right, your perfume fills my head, the stars are red and all the nights so blue.
And then I go and spoil it all by saying something stupid like I love you.
By the way, speaking of the worst,
Bizarro.
talk about dated. This song is as dated and crazy
Oh my God,
as Hogan's
yes.
Heroes. No,
First of all, it's a father and daughter.
Yeah, that's
singing a love
insane.
song. This
Yeah.
is creepy.
it's like Trumpet of Honor.
Trump and Ivanka cover
But
it.
no,
Do a
is
cover.
it Wives and Lovers?
Mm-hmm.
That song is fucking insane. Hey, little girl, fix your hair, comb your makeup, time to get ready for love. It's basically, it goes, you might want to pull them up
Is
because
that the Bacharach song?
yeah.
Yeah.
Day after day, there'll be girls at the office, and men will always be men. Don't greet him at home with your hair up in curlers. You may not see him again. Because wives can always be lovers too. Run to his arms whenever he comes home to you. I'm warning you. It's basically, you better fuck it up. You better
I
keep.
saw on the Dean Martin show, he sings, what's that from, it's with a real live girl.
Oh, yeah.
So he sings Real Live Girl, and they have the set up like a children's playground.
God.
And
Wow.
Dean Martin
Where is this?
is on swings and going down the slide with little girls. Little girls are there. Now, I could understand if they put his dancers there, and
Yeah.
it could be a funny but there were little girls, and Dean Martin is sliding down the slide and going on the swings and the monkey bars, singing about a real live girl.
That is.
Can you see this on the web? Is it available?
I don't know.
That's
I'll
Heidi
track it down.
Saha level clue.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Well, you know what movie really does not age well is What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Oh,
No,
yeah.
no, it doesn't.
with like lusting after all the Asian women. It's like, we all know how that turned out. Yeah, that one does not roll well.
Well, I'm running out.
But I still like the theme. David Sebastian. What's his name? Sebastian.
John Sebastian?
John Sebastian and a Lovin' Spoonful
Uh-huh.
sing the theme song, which is I've always been the guy with the finger in his nose when the passport picture gets taken. When the other guy takes out stealing chickens on the one caught in the bacon. When they drop a piano from the 42nd floor, I'm always underneath looking up. When a tidal wave strikes 100 miles at sea, I'm the one on the rail throwing up. Bum, 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 bum. Wee kapow. Somehow I would have looked anyhow.
One little look and then holy cow.
If my folks friends could see me now.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do we got, Paul? Our researcher, Paul.
Oh, my God,
he
there
found
it is.
He found the video on YouTube.
It's creepier than I described it.
There's a girl sitting on his lap.
Dana will now watch the video on Paul's phone.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually a great song.
Yes.
And he sings it really fast. I was always just the fellow with the finger up his nose in the passport. He was, by the way, Love Is Spoonful, great.
Yeah.
This isn't. Oh.
Oh, I know this song.
He has a little girl in his lap when he's singing Real Life Girl.
Times have changed.
Yeah. Oh, and he's making them breathe into a rag. Oh, yeah, this is really...
It's creepy. Okay, so...
Oh, Dean.
So, I'm Gilbert Gottfried. This has been Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast with my sidekick and boy wonder...
Oh, Lord. I'm not wearing the tights.
Yes.
I'll tell you now.
With my modern day Burt Ward.
I wish.
Frank Santo Padre. And we've been talking, of course, to Vincent Price.
We've been talking of bushes and excrement.
You know, Dana, when we had people like Janet Ann Gallo on the show and Ron Chaney and we had Bella Jr.
But we had Janet Ann Gallo. She was the little girl from Ghost of Frankenstein.
Yes.
Wow.
And still to come, hopefully, Donnie Donegan.
Yes.
Wow, Donnie, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I read film facts. I know who Donnie Donegan is.
This is the point I was making is this is the perfect show for you.
No, it really is. In fact, when you said Burt Ward, I'll tell you a great little story about how great Adam West is to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So say something positive.
Yeah. One of our favorite guests, by the way, on here.
Well, why not?
A gentleman.
He was on The Simpsons doing Krusty the Clown was on an old Batman, and we had Adam come in to do the voice. And we had recorded him, and he was, he's charming and wonderful.
Yeah,
and
the best.
And just before he left, we said, we just need some wild lines for you now, just like grunting and groaning like you're struggling in vain. He went, okay. Struggling in vain? It's like, we did not tell him to do it. He just, and we were just like in awe. It was like hearing that opening. It was like hearing Paul McCartney do the opening chord to Hard Day's Night. It was it was just like yeah, that's exactly what you need to do.
That's a good impression of Adam West.
Struggling and he that book Back to the Batcave had just come out and he goes, the hubris to write that book, the hubris.
He paid Gilbert quite a compliment when we had him on.
Oh, he said I would have made a great Joker.
Oh,
Penguin.
Yeah,
no, Penguin.
Yeah.
Penguin, I mean.
Yeah.
I would have, and I thought, I was stunned when he said that. I couldn't believe it.
You would have made a great Penguin, Gilbert.
That's the best Adam West I've heard.
Time is a cruel mistress, Gilbert, and it didn't happen soon enough. There's a great line where the Batmobile broke down and Robin's angry here and they have to run and he goes, "Caution, Robin. The Batmobile is a machine made by man, and like man has its flaws."
And what was
It's perfect.
What was that horrible special with Batman and the other?
Oh, the Legends of the Superheroes.
Oh,
You
my
have to be
God,
familiar
they
with
had
that. And the roast.
Ghetto Man.
Yeah. By the way, Ghetto Man, the actor who played Ghetto Man, is still around.
Oh,
and
we gotta have him
one
on.
of our fans is friends with him and offered him up, so we have to talk to
And
Ghetto
they
Man.
have a scene where Batman and Robin, Ward, and they meet against this super powerful villain.
Solomon Grundy, I
Oh,
believe.
yes. And Batman and Robin just kind of like walk away from the fight. They go, "Oh, all right, you got us that time," and they casually walk away. I thought, that's it?
I just watched the original Batman movie from '66. Oh, yeah. That is the progenitor of Airplane. You know, that is the first example of, like, it's the guy that looks like the guy, and he's not aware he's in a comedy.
Yeah.
And he's playing it straight as a goddamn heart attack.
Yeah.
They're cousins. They're absolute cousins.
And the director just passed at 101. Wow. Leslie Martinson. Yeah.
So anyway, since I told the other parts already, thank you, our special guest, Dana Gould.
Thanks,
Dana.
much.
It was fun. Oh, you want to put in the last plug about the show?
Oh,
IFC?
Yeah. If you enjoy Abbott and Costello Meets Frankenstein, give Stand Against Evil a chance. It premieres on Halloween night, actually, at 10 p.m. on IFC, and that's a sneak preview, and then it starts its regular run Wednesday, November 2nd. At 10 p.m. on IFC, it stars John C. McGinley from Scrubs.
Funny man.
And Janet Varney, and I'm in there a little bit, and it's really good. I'm really proud of it. It came out, for better or worse, it's exactly what I wanted it to be.
Good. And your podcast.
And my podcast, The Dana Gould Hour, and I frequently wipe my ass only with baby wipes.
Thanks, Dana.
And the actress was Amarin Iaz.
As I said, every story on the show is apocryphal.
Glue, glary, glore.